Hi there, welcome to Spec Point 2.3, which is all about osmosis. So, osmosis is simply a type of diffusion, and it's specifically when we're talking about water molecules. Okay, so we know that diffusion is the net movement of particles from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. So, osmosis is the same, but it's specifically water molecules. Okay, so Um, first thing is partially permeable membrane. So partially permeable membrane means it lets some things through, but not all things. And we draw partially permeable membranes as a line with little holes in it. Okay. Now the reason why it's partially permeable is on the simplest level that if we had a small molecule like that, it would fit through the gap. But if we had a big molecule like that, it wouldn't fit through the gap. It would be too big. So that would go through, that wouldn't. Some things go through, other things don't go through. So it's partially permeable. But the word permeable means lets things through. Partially means some things can go through, but not others. Now, in reality, there is a little bit more to it than that because if we think about our cell membrane, and are hydrophilic, hydrophobic, etc., it also is affected by whether things are lipid soluble. So if something dissolves in lipids, we know that our membrane is actually made of phospholipids, and so something lipid soluble is more likely to be able to go through. Similarly with charges and no charges. But for the moment, we're looking at water molecules. So if we had a partially permeable membrane here, and we had a high concentration of water over here. All right, specifically water molecules because it's osmosis. So if you have a high concentration, it just means that you've got lots of molecules in a particular volume. And on this side, we've got a low concentration of water. So we've got less. We would say that osmosis happens from high concentration to low concentration across the semi-permeable membrane. Now, the last point is that really it's the net movement. Okay, it's not the movement of every molecule. So it's not the case that this molecule just here has a little brain and looks around itself and says, oh, look, there's 10 molecules here. Oh, there's only 5 there. I'd better go this way. You know, this little molecule here doesn't have a brain. In reality, each little molecule is moving totally randomly. Now, it might be the case that that molecule is moving that way and is going to head through that gap. However, it might be the case that this molecule is heading that way, and this one is heading that way, and this one is heading this way. So each molecule has its own kinetic energy and is moving completely randomly. Okay, if this is an enclosed space, when it reaches the edge, it will bounce off and go boing, doing, 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 moving around. Okay, totally randomly. Now, if that random movement happens to coincide with one of these gaps in the membrane, then it may well go through. But if it happens to hit on here, it's going to bounce off. And obviously, if it's going over here, it's not going through. Now, the molecules on this side equally have their own kinetic energy. They have the same kinetic energy as the ones on the other side, moving randomly. And likewise, if one of those happens to be going through the gap, it will go through and it will go back the other way. So this one could go back the other way that way. There's nothing to stop the ones on this side going through, just like the ones on this side going through. Now, overall, because we've got a high concentration on this side and a low concentration on that side, overall, more will go from high to low concentration, and a few will go from low concentration to high concentration. So overall, is what we mean by the net. Overall, there's more movement from high concentration to low concentration than vice versa. And that's what we mean by net movement. It's not that every molecule moves from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. It's that the net movement is from high concentration to low concentration across the partial permeable membrane. And if it's a question about osmosis, it's the diffusion of water molecules specifically. Okay, and that's all there is to that point.